In the shadow of the Roman Republic, a world built on conquest and subjugation, a man was forged not in the halls of power, but in the crucible of despair. His name was Spartacus. He was a Thracian, captured in a distant land and sold into the brutal machinery of Roman expansion. His life, once his own, became the property of others. He was no longer a man, but a commodity, a slave destined for the blood-soaked sands of the arena. Stripped of his identity and his freedom, he was forced to become a gladiator, a living weapon whose only purpose was to entertain the masses with the spectacle of death. The roar of the crowd was his daily reality, the clash of steel his only song. In this pit of savagery, where men were treated as beasts, every sunrise was a question, and every sunset a temporary reprieve. He was a pawn in a game of life and death, his fate decided by the whim of a mob and the cold calculus of his masters. Beneath the veneer of a hardened killer, a flicker of an unquenchable spirit endured. Within the cold stone walls of the gladiatorial school in Capua, under the watchful eye of his master, Lentulus Batiatus Spartacus, lived a life of relentless cruelty. Each day was a testament to the depths of human oppression. He witnessed the casual brutality, the degradation, the absolute denial of humanity that was the cornerstone of Roman slavery. Yet, where others saw only an inescapable end, Spartacus dared to see a beginning. In the stolen moments of silence, in the weary eyes of his fellow captives, he nurtured a dream that was as dangerous as it was audacious. It was a dream of freedom, a vision of a world where he was not a thing to be owned, but a man who could determine his own destiny. This was not a passive hope, but a burning fire in his soul, a promise he made to himself that he would not die a slave. The spark of that dream was destined to ignite a firestorm. The year was 73 BC. The oppressive air of the gladiator school had become suffocating. Spartacus, alongside a cadre of fellow gladiators, men like Crixus and Inam, warriors from Gaul and Germania, decided that a glorious death in the arena was a fool's bargain compared to a chance at freedom, however slim. Their plan was born of desperation and courage. Armed with nothing more than kitchen utensils and the element of surprise, they overwhelmed their guards in a swift, bloody coup. They fought their way out of the school, not as gladiators performing for a crowd, but as men reclaiming their lives. 70 souls, breaking their chains and spilling into the Italian countryside. Their first taste of liberty, a chaotic, adrenaline-fueled flight from the symbol of their enslavement. It was a small, seemingly insignificant act of defiance against an empire that spanned the known world. That desperate escape was not an end, but a beginning. The news of the gladiators' flight spread like wildfire through the plantations and villas of slaves, toiling under the lash in the fields and mines, heard the whispers of a new hope. They saw in Spartacus's rebellion a reflection of their own yearning for liberation. From every corner, the dispossessed and the downtrodden began to flock to his banner. The initial band of 70 escapees swelled into a formidable force. Field hands, shepherds, and household slaves, men and women who had known only bondage, now found a leader and a cause. The small breakout from a single school had metastasized into a vast, sprawling slave rebellion. An army of the oppressed rising from the very heart of the Roman Republic. This was no longer just a flight to safety. It had become a revolutionary war against the institution of slavery itself. In the crucible of this uprising, the gladiator was reforged into a general. Spartacus proved to be more than just a ferocious fighter. He was a leader of extraordinary vision and tactical genius. He understood that his army of former slaves, though filled with courage, lacked the discipline and equipment of the Roman legions. He trained them, turning a disparate mob into a cohesive fighting force. He used the terrain to his advantage, employing guerrilla tactics to outmaneuver and ambush the Roman patrols sent to crush them. In early confrontations, he demonstrated a profound understanding of military strategy, repeatedly defeating smaller Roman forces sent against him. He was a leader who led from the front, sharing the hardships of his men and earning their unyielding loyalty. His intelligence in battle was matched only by his charisma, a potent combination that turned a ragtag band of rebels into an army capable of defying a superpower. The world watched in stunned disbelief as this army of slaves, led by a man they had once paid to watch die for sport, laid waste to the Italian peninsula. The rebellion grew from a regional nuisance into an existential threat, to the Roman Republic. Two entire consular armies, the full might of Rome's military leadership for the year, were dispatched to extinguish the uprising, and both were humiliatingly defeated by Spartacus's forces. His army, now numbering in the tens of thousands, marched with an unstoppable momentum, challenging the very foundations of the greatest empire the world had ever known. They were no longer seen as fleeing slaves, but as a hostile nation waging war on Roman soil. The name Spartacus became a curse on the lips of senators, a specter of chaos that haunted the marbled halls of power and threatened to unravel the social fabric of the Republic. Yet, amidst the stunning victories and the growing power, the core purpose of the rebellion remained pure. Spartacus was not a conqueror in the Roman mold. He did not fight for land, for gold, or for glory. He fought for a single, sublime ideal: freedom. His goal was not to replace one tyranny with another, but to shatter the chains of bondage for all. He sought to lead his people out of Italy, across the Alps, to a place where they could live as free men and women, far from the reach of their former masters. This fundamental difference in objective set him apart from his adversaries. While Rome fought for dominion and order, Spartacus and his followers fought for the inherent right to exist, for the dignity of the human spirit. Their war was not one of conquest, but of liberation, a desperate, valiant struggle for the soul of humanity itself. The unprecedented success of the slave army sent a tremor of fear through the Roman elite. The ruling class, which had initially dismissed the uprising as a minor insurrection, now faced a crisis of terrifying proportions. The fear was palpable. Wealthy landowners abandoned their villas, senators debated in panicked tones, and the specter of a slave-led revolution overthrowing the Republic became a genuine possibility. The rebellion exposed the deep, festering wound at the heart of Roman society: its utter dependence on the brutal institution of slavery. Spartacus had not just defeated their legions, he had held a mirror up to Rome, revealing the fragility of its power and the moral bankruptcy of its foundation. The fear he inspired was not just of military defeat, but of a world turned upside down, where the oppressed would rise to judge their oppressors. Finally, the full, undivided might of the Roman war machine was brought to bear against the rebellion. The Senate, desperate and humiliated, turned to one of its wealthiest and most ruthless citizens, Marcus Licinius. Given extraordinary powers and command of Aetlin's own overwhelming force of nearly 50,000 disciplined, battle-hardened soldiers, Crassus cornered Spartacus and his army in the south of Italy. Trapped, outnumbered, and with supplies dwindling, Spartacus faced an impossible choice. He could surrender and watch his people return to chains, or he could stand and fight, embracing a glorious, defiant end. He chose to fight. In the final, cataclysmic battle near the Sila River in 71 BC, Spartacus led his men in a last, desperate charge. Knowing the end was near, he fought with superhuman courage, attempting to cut his way through the legions, to kill Crassus himself. He fell as he had lived, a warrior fighting against impossible odds, unbowed and unbroken to the very last. Though the man was slain and his army shattered, the rebellion was over, but its legacy had just begun. Spartacus was defeated, but the idea he embodied could not be killed. In the centuries that followed, his name would not be forgotten. It became a powerful symbol, a rallying cry for all who resist tyranny and fight for freedom. He was the slave who rose, the gladiator who defied an empire, the man who proved that the human spirit's desire for dignity and liberty is an unquenchable fire. His story is more than a historical account of a failed rebellion. It is an immortal testament to the courage it takes to stand against injustice, to fight for a cause greater than oneself, and to choose a death in the pursuit of freedom over a life in chains. His legacy is not written in the annals of conquerors, but etched into the heart of humanity as an enduring emblem of resistance, hope, and the unbreakable dignity of the human soul.